Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 56 of College Football Throwdown. I am your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hey there, Husker fans and big college football fans.
All right. Yes, we are here officially in the postseason of college football. The bowl games have started, so we're going to talk about those that have occurred as well as the upcoming bowls and what's been going on for our favorite team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, both in football and in other sports, as it turns out. But first, I think we should start this off with our customary popping of the beverage. I believe we both have something this time.
Yes, we do.
So
okay.
You go first. All right.
Okay.
I don't know if that picked up, but I just did mine too.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Clink.
Yep. There we go.
The celebratory beer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well.
All right.
I got you got on FaceTime with me yesterday with your celebratory cigar and beer in hand as you celebrated the victory of our Huskers volleyball team winning their 5th national championship.
Yes, that's right. And what an exciting year it has been for them. And I'm a big Nebraska volleyball fan as well. In fact, we ought to talk more about that. I'm thinking that's something we'll do as a New Year's resolution in this podcast. Even though I'm talking about trying to make them shorter, I would love to take a little time to talk about Nebraska volleyball because it is, in fact, just like our new athletic director said, it is the flagship program. It is the example of what we would want all of our programs to be like in terms of how they go after every detail. And in fact, to talk just briefly about John Cook, in the press conference after of the game, the championship was done, he spoke on a few things. And one of the things he mentioned was about the commitment that the University of Nebraska has to basically provide and enable their coaches to do whatever it takes, which includes, being on the cutting edge on things like sports psychology and things like that. And this team made great use of that tool. For example, for really they've been trying it for a couple of years, but they really dove deeper and they got more time with the sports psychologist this year than they've ever had, and just things like that, where no stone is unturned, left unturned. He analyzes and identifies everything. So, and if every coach worked that hard and did all those little details, little Nick Saban-ish, right?
Right.
Then by golly, we would see greater success on the field.
Yeah. Well, I saw this interesting, it was like a Twitter post that was on the Star Wars Reddit, or Star Wars. You can tell my mind is in a certain place right now. With the release of The Last Jedi. The Huskers Reddit page, and it said that since the year 2000, Nebraska's varsity sports has won 10 national titles, and all of them have been in women's sports. So it just goes to show, and there's the whole argument that they're not promoted enough. Not I was going to say supported enough, but that's not true because you just talk about how Nebraska does give great support and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But financially they aren't the money making sports, thus they don't get the same amount of TV coverage and attention and all that sort of stuff that the other sports do.
Right.
So.
Right, I would agree.
Right, and that's true with, across men's sports as well, with like men's volleyball or men's hockey or these other sports, that don't get as much as like basketball and football and all that stuff. So that's just kind of how it is.
It is, absolutely.
But yeah, I was not able to watch the game last night because I was busy with other things. But I think we decided that we're going to watch it when I'm with you guys in New Orleans over this Christmas break. So maybe we can do a little more in-depth talk about the volleyball team after that.
Yes, let's do that. We'll be able to talk about the game itself. I'll just mention quickly, though. It was just an impressive Final Four in which we played Penn State. We had been the team that was the only team to beat them during the regular season, and they were the number one ranked team for a good portion of the season, and certainly going into the tournament, they were seeded number one, had a tremendous amount of talent on their team, and we didn't. We beat them because we were the better team, and not because we had better talent, and that was kind of a theme of the whole weekend, and the whole Final Four was team wins over talent, and I'd like to think that maybe we're going to see a little bit of that with Scott Frost, where I think Nebraska fans, particularly, this will maybe be my transition into a little college football discussion or Nebraska football discussion, is there are an awful lot of teams. I would use our rival, Big Ten rival anyway, Wisconsin as an example. They're a team that plays at a very high level with inferior talent compared to those that they are mentioned with. You know what I mean? And that's where Nebraska needs to start in the rebuilding process. They need to stop worrying about only getting the top recruits, and making sure that they're getting the right kind of players, the right attitude, the right mentality, right work ethic, commitment to weight training, that sort of stuff. All those things have got to be in place, even if they're not the most talented. And they'll start winning games that they're supposed to win, and then winning a few games that they're not supposed to win. And then once you get there, then you can start building on, okay, now I got to upgrade my talent even more, another increment. And that's part of those details that we'll get into sometime in the future that John Cook spoke of.
Right. Although I'm sure that some of the coaches, former coaches here in Nebraska, in like this period of, mediocrity where we've been trying to kind of recapture our identity, part of the problem has been is that we've changed our systems between different coaches so many times that, like, just as Mike Riley was getting into the offense that he wanted to run in this year, after 3 years, he's finally starting to get some of his guys in there. Then he his bad season gets fired, and now Scott Frost is coming with a whole new system. So now we need to get recruits that fit Scott Frost's system, and so the cupboards, so to speak, have to be full with the type of talent for the type of system that you want. And whereas traditionally we had, our option power running offense that was the cornerstone of what Nebraska was, that we don't have that same identity anymore. We don't have something that, is consistent across different coaches. Like Wisconsin under Barry Alvarez has had consistency in that regard.
Yeah, and even when they switched coaches, they stayed with a coach that was within their mental system, or the coach didn't stick around. I mean, they had one experiment where they took a guy who was a little bit different, but basically he was told, this is the system you're going to run here. And he didn't love being dictated to, so he left at the first opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Right. But yeah, it's been a little over a week since our last podcast, and so there's been a good bit that's kind of happened in that time. We weren't totally clear if Scott Frost was going to actually coach the Peach Bowl for UCF, because we're just about logistics and UCF hiring the new coach, who turns out is Josh Heupel. Heupel. There we go. Yeah. But as it's turned out, yes, he is going to be coaching that game. So, and the full staff from UCF that was under Scott Frost is returning with him to Nebraska. So now it sounds like that they are like coaching and recruiting for Nebraska, and then flying back to Florida to coach their team, and then they're doing a lot of traveling around.
Well, sure. Now, but I'm gonna speak to that very specifically, and then you can go ahead and go on with what you were going to say, and that is that every coaching staff that's in a bowl game is doing that. They're effectively living out of a suitcase, and they're flying in to town to coach their team, and then whenever they get a window, and what typically happens is you won't have your whole staff at the practices until they get to the bowl site, right? So they'll wipe. What do I want to say? They'll go to the practices, and then the head coach might send half the coaches out recruiting, and then the other half will run the practice, right? And then the next day they'll switch. and then the third day they'll all be together or something like that. You know what I mean? They come up with some structure in place to do that, but it is not any different than if they hadn't changed jobs. If we were playing in that bowl game, the University of Nebraska was playing that bowl game, and Scott Frost had been our coach for the last 3 years, he would be doing exactly the same thing. The only thing that's different is you're having to switch school representation. That's what's unique. But the actual travel and the conflict of time is the same as if it was any typical
True.
bowl year.
True. But this year now has a different dynamic because of the early signing period.
Correct.
On December 20th. So I feel like there's even more urgency in terms of trying to get recruits to
Correct.
commit to you, or if you're going after somebody who's committed to another school, to get them to change their mind before they sign with the other school.
And now historically, there is a dead period that happens where players can't visit campuses, and or potential recruits can't visit campuses, and the coaches cannot travel to visit. They can still make phone calls and have contact and all that sort of stuff, but they can't, do in-home visits or any of that sort of stuff, so as to not be a disadvantage for people in bowl games. If they didn't have that rule, then some people wouldn't like being in a bowl game, frankly, because it would take, the teams that weren't in a bowl game could be out there recruiting unencumbered, so to speak, you know what I mean, and getting in people's ears. So they don't do that. Now, with this new structure, I actually don't know the rules, so I'm going to have to bone up on that a little bit. But I have a feeling that this weekend was the last weekend that they're going to allow visits. Well, the 20th actually is signing day, right? So, yeah. This weekend was the last weekend you can have visits, and now there's going to be a dead period from now on until signing day, and then that dead period carries on until January 2nd, or the national championship, not the national championship, but the New Year's bowl games. I think after that there is that 1 week between the semifinals and the finals. I think they do allow visits to occur. I don't know. I'll have to bone up on that.
Right. And this brings up an interesting discussion because of this unique situation between UCF and Nebraska with Scott Frost becoming our coach, is that now we know all of the assistant coaches, essentially, all the main assistants that were under Scott Frost at UCF are following him to Nebraska. Some players and commits who are committed to UCF or were at UCF have already, or I don't know about current players, but I know at least recruits who are committed to UCF have decommitted from UCF and recommitted to Nebraska now to follow Scott Frost. And there's rumors about players from UCF like following Scott Frost after the bowl game and things of that nature. So what, just in general, how do we view that kind of mentality of players? And then with coaches, I understand it more because it's a job and Scott Frost is their boss and he hired them. So I get them following him in that regard. But there's that loyalty to the man versus the loyalty to the program aspect. And obviously, in this case, it works out well for us as Nebraska fans. But how do we just feel about that as a general concept?
And you're speaking not about assistant coaches, but about recruits and players.
Well, I'm speaking about all of it, but I'm just laying out right now that I understand the assistant coaches more because for them it's a job, and Scott Frost is like their guy, although I know that there was at least one coach, assistant at UCF, who's been there for quite some time, who also left to follow Frost.
Correct. And typically that's not the case. I would say it's more common that when a head coach leaves one school, and especially when they leave a lesser school and then go to a bigger school, so to speak, they often take a few of their assistants with them, their right hand men, so to speak. But a lot of the other guys, they don't continue. So and they go out and try to upgrade, if you will, right? Get a better coach. If they had a good defensive back coach, well, they're going to try to go find somebody who is a even better coach and an even better recruiter than the one they had. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, but Scott chose a unique path within that description, and that he basically brought everyone with him from his previous staff. He kept that group together, kept the band together, and part of that I think is because he'd only been a coach for 2 years, so those guys had all been together for the 2 years, and I think it's also just a little bit about his philosophy, right? That caused him to make that decision. And we'll see if that bears fruit or whether that will come back to haunt him. We have even on this podcast, I think in the past, I have criticized, the decision by Mike Riley, for example, to bring so many of his assistants from Oregon without at least considering the opportunity that he had to maybe entice better, more prominent, coaches, because he was going to a blue blood program like Nebraska, who was going to fork out more money, and because of the prestige of the program, could have maybe enticed some better coaches, if you will, but he didn't do that. Scott Frost, I mean, he just stayed with his guys, and so that's kind of unique. And it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I like the stability aspect of it. I think it is in keeping with Tom Osborne's philosophy, and he is very much a Tom Osborne disciple. Scott is. It's clear that there's going to be a lot of Tom Osborne influence on Scott, which excites me to a great degree.
Yeah. But then, and I guess you're right in that, in terms of, assistants following the head coach when they move up, the pay grade, as it were, the scale of college football. But then also with the recruits and the players and stuff, I saw lots of people speculating about the quarterback at UCF who's been such a stud for them. Like, is he going to follow Scott Frost, because he's, Scott Frost's system
well,
is
now
going to...
an existing player, it's a little tougher deal, because if you do that as a player, you have to sit out a year, and so you're giving up eligibility. And the concern would be, was there an unwritten promise there that you come with me and I'll make you the starter? You know what I mean? And that is dangerous water that you don't want to tread in, right? So I would say or suggest that that doesn't happen very often. Existing players, it's far the more significant thing that you just discussed was recruits doing it, because they aren't yet, they haven't signed on the dotted line, so they have the flexibility and freedom to do that. And I understand, I really do. I get it. I understand why a player is compelled to reconsider his commitment to a school when the head coach and all the assistants who have built a relationship with him over the course of, oftentimes more than a year, all of a sudden are gone, that they wouldn't want to go to that school anymore. Except that you would hope that they're also going to that school because of the school, because of the academics, because of the environment, because of the fans, because of all the other things, right? And it used to be more true that was those were major factors in the decision, but these days the kids are much more focused on the relationship with the coach, and the school is very much the secondary aspect of it. And so. You ask how do I feel about it? I would advise you, as my son, for example, if you were in that situation, I would have advised you to think very strongly before you made a commitment. And if you made a commitment to, make sure you're making the commitment to the school. I think that's the kind of adult decision that should be going on there, and the adults in the room, so to speak, so the moms and dads or high school coaches or whoever the mentor is for that young man, should, in my opinion, be advising those kids to be very sure about the school first, and don't assume the coach is going to be there for the whole time you're there or any of that stuff. You're going there to get a degree, and did all those things line up the way you want them to? And then the coach has got to be good, obviously, that you like. But if you're a big time school like anybody that was committed to Nebraska, you know what? You had to know going in that there was a chance that Mike Riley wouldn't be there your whole career. So you would have thought that they would have already made a decision with that in mind, knowing that, okay, but also being confident that Nebraska was going to pick a really good um, alternative, right? Once they made a decision to go in a different direction. So you have to have that confidence that, hey, even if this guy isn't here because he gets a better job and he leaves, um, or he gets fired, whoever they replace him with is also going to be good.
Right.
But you get caught like Patrick O'Brien is now, where he, I'm sure, is before second semester begins, is going to have some serious discussions with mom and dad over Christmas about what he's going to do. I mean, he's now been at school for 2 years. He's probably got a really nice set of friends, and all that, right? And loves Lincoln maybe, but this offense that Scott Frost runs is not compatible with his skill set at all. So Patrick needs to leave if football is important to him, and you know what I mean,
Right.
and start over at another school, or maybe make the decision that, what, I'm just going to finish my career here as a student, and maybe get into coaching or something, and stay on the team for that reason. I mean, there's a bunch of choices that he could make, obviously, but he's not going to be a quarterback on Scott Frost's offense.
Right. Yeah, and so talking about what's kind of gone down in this time in terms of our recruiting schedule and commitments and decommitments and all that, because we knew that we were going to get some decommitments because of Mike Riley being fired. You've already talked about how this recruiting class, we kind of got to see it as a little bit of a wash, because of that, and that it's going to be not be a great class, but we're going to build from there. Hopefully, there have been some headline getting recruits that Scott Frost has gotten commitments from in this time. There's a safety, C.J. Smith. What do we else we have here? The big QB Adrian Martinez, tight
Yep.
end Justin McGriff, and then
Yep.
just today I saw JUCO safety 3-star Deontay Williams
Yep.
also committing. Are there any other big recruits I'm missing there?
No, I think you mentioned them. And they had quite a number of recruits visiting this weekend. So we'll see how many, or if any of those guys sign up, or make a commitment here in the next day or two. But because some of them are going to be making a decision before signing day, which, again, today's date is the 17th.
Yes.
So in 3 days, I believe the signing day happens. So these kids are going to have a couple of days to think about it, and then they're going to have to make their decisions, or they're going to say, "Well, I'm going to continue the recruiting process until February." So it'll be interesting to see how many make that decision and just go for it. But then we'll know how many scholarships we still are after. At that point. So.
Right. So what I guess what would you rank our current situation as in terms of the talent we've gained versus what we've lost from Mike Riley being fired?
We've lost a lot of talent when Mike Riley, and well, just because of the way the season played out. You can call it Mike Riley's firing, but some of those kids were going to change their minds anyway because they were seeing the wheels come off of Mike Riley's system right in front of their eyes, and they're like, well, maybe I don't want to go there, So even if we had retained Mike Riley, I think a number of those players probably would not have signed with Nebraska. Some of them would have, but so it's hard to say definitively. But who would have done what? But bottom line is we lost a lot of very highly regarded players. I'm going to say about 6 or 7 guys left. In the weeks prior to Riley's firing or in the aftermath of his firing, they left. I think there might be one of those guys that we're still recruiting because he has left the door open that he would recommit to Nebraska because he has enough of a relationship with the school that he wants to continue to consider us. But most of them who left were off the list, right?
Right.
Right now, we're not. And again, when you make a decision, in my opinion, when you make a decision like we made to after the kind of year that we had, I think you have to accept the fact that I don't assign a great deal of responsibility to Scott Frost on this first recruiting class. I think he has to do everything he can to salvage it as best he can, but I would protect those scholarships, and I would not waste a one of them on a guy because we need a body, because we need that third, cornerback or whatever. If you can't get a guy that you believe is um, capable of being, a starter for you, then don't give him the scholarship. Keep it for next year. Go into next season. We've historically done that and punished ourselves anyway because of the way we recruit, and had less than 85 scholarship players to begin the season anyway. So this won't be a lot different than what we've been doing to ourselves. But then next year, with a full year to recruit as Nebraska's coaches, now then they've got to go nuts on the program. You know what I mean? So next year's recruiting class is going to be much more important. This one's important in that we need to fill needs. So I'm hopeful that they're doing a lot of film study of junior college players, and they're looking at some high school players, but certainly a lot of sophomores and juniors that are coming up, because that's where they need to devote their time.
Yep, I agree with that. And you and I were talking last night about the of the recruits that he did get, the one that's the most interesting and exciting is this Adrian Martinez,
Yes.
who was previously committed to Tennessee, but Scott Frost was pursuing him even at UCF. He was like his top quarterback choice, because he just seems to fit Scott's system so well. So it is
Right.
exciting that he is coming here for sure.
Right, and he does seem to be, and he was a little bit of a, he was a top 10 quarterback of that dual threat variety, according to a number of the services that are out there. But and I think even that ranking is a little diminished from where it might have been because he did not play his senior year because of an injury. So you have that, which is a bit of a question mark. But assuming Scott has done his due diligence on the young man's injury situation, and that he is going to be good to go by next year, and not diminished as a result of that injury, then I think we might have gotten a steal. A guy who's actually better than his perceived position. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So
No,
so
that's definitely exciting.
it
And
is.
we're hopeful that if UCF puts up let's not say that they beat Auburn in the bowl game, but they put up a good fight. Only lose by 7 points or something like that. And then we have a decent like 7-5, 8-4 type season at Nebraska. That shows off, with some explosive offense, that shows off what Scott's offense is capable of.
Right.
Then we'll be getting the recruits we really want next year.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that I think we have to kind of accept that this is a process, and what we're looking for is improvement,
Right. Yeah.
and moving in the right direction. So now, one thing we said we were going to talk about was um, the coaches, and I don't know if you wanted to cover something else first, or you wanted to talk about the assistants.
Let's talk about the assistants, but we won't spend too much time on it. Um,
Okay.
I think we have already discussed that probably the area of our biggest concern is the defensive coordinator, just because at UCF there were some big high scoring crazy games, which is
Yes.
also a complement of that offense, that hurry up offense. Your defense is out on the field more, so it becomes more difficult for them to have shutout games and things of that nature. But that is definitely an area I'm a little concerned about.
Right. I understand, and I am too. But if you read the bio of Eric Chenander, who is the defensive coordinator, um, Eric he's a young guy. He just graduated from college in 2003. So I mean he's a young coach, and that's exciting. And number two, he seems to have some loyalty to Scott, because he followed Scott from Oregon. So when he got the head coaching job, Scott brought him from Oregon. So to leave Oregon to go to 0-12 UCF team was a gutsy move on Shenander's part, I think. He, if you look at his bio, was a nominee for the Broyles Award back in 2016. So, you know, he's a guy that is obviously made some noise nationally, both because typically that award is given to people who've done some good things, right? And so not every assistant gets nominated for that award. So that's an indication that he's doing some good things. And people need to understand where the UCF defense was before Chenander came. And the fact is that he has made improvements in that defensive structure at UCF, even though it still looks awful. But one of the things that I like about his defense is that they were high in the turnover department. They forced a lot of turnovers, and it has been years since Nebraska was good at that. You'd have to go back to the early Bo Pelini years when we had some great turnover season, but generally speaking, we were horrible about turnovers. We were almost always the negative in that category because our offenses were so prolifically turnover prone.
Right.
With some of the quarterbacks we've recently had. So,
and you mentioned, I believe, in a previous week that UCF did seem to be good at tackling. They had proper mechanics. That sort of stuff.
Exactly. Although it'll be interesting to see. And you mentioned earlier about them winning their bowl game as kind of a projecting in a positive direction. I think we need to prepare ourselves for a reality. Number one, the goofiness of that whole situation with Scott coaching the game, even though he's now at Nebraska and everything like that. Some of the players are going to embrace that. Some of them aren't. Some of them are going to be pissed, are going to feel a little slighted by Scott and the coaches leaving them. I think you're not going to see their best performance in the bowl game. Combine that with the fact that I think the draw they got by playing Auburn was probably, I would have much rather seen them play USC or, even Ohio State than Auburn.
Right.
I think UCF would have made it interesting with Ohio State, frankly. I think that would have been a game that Scott Frost might have had a chance to make interesting. But against Auburn, I think Auburn might eat his lunch.
Right.
And that's so I'm prepared for the reality that Scott's team won't look very good against Auburn for a number of reasons that have to do with their inability to play at their best because of all the circumstances off the field, combined with the fact that Auburn was probably the worst matchup they could have gotten out of the New Year's Day 6 bowl game selections that they might have, been aligned with.
Right.
They got the best team that's not playing in the playoff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, yeah. Although obviously it was Ohio State who everyone was debating about between them and Alabama, who's going to get in because of their record and the fact they were a champion and all that. But here you are saying that in terms of who's the better team, you think it's Auburn by a decent margin.
Oh, between Ohio State and Auburn? Oh, yeah. Well, again, Auburn beat Georgia, who's ranked number 1 now, and beat Alabama, right?
And lost to Clemson.
And lost to Clemson. They have proven it on the field, and they have some incredible talent.
Yep.
Frankly, I'm not a not Braxton Miller. What's the quarterback's name?
Is it Keyshawn?
No, Ohio State. I'm sorry. Is it Braxton Miller?
No.
What the heck is it?
Shoot.
Anyway, Ohio State's quarterback isn't that good, in my opinion, and can be neutralized to some extent. If you make him a passer, he can make some bad decisions, and he can look pretty, normal, average.
J.T. Barrett. That's it.
Yes, thank you, J.T. Barrett.
Right.
And so that's why I think Ohio State is more vulnerable.
Right.
Because their quarterback really isn't that great. Right. He's not.
Well,
phenomenal.
he's inconsistent. He's had games where he's looked incredible.
Right. That's
but
true.
other games not so much. I
Right.
did want to bring up just because you mentioned that the defensive coordinator followed him from Oregon. I remember some people speculating because Chip Kelly has now been hired at UCLA. Some people wondering
Right.
if some of those former Oregon people who followed Frost were gonna jump over to Chip Kelly since he was the guy there at Oregon. But they
Right.
all chose to stay with Scott Frost. I don't know if that's because Chip Kelly just didn't offer it to them, if he's looking for bigger and better
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
or
I think that's more likely the truth.
okay,
I would be shocked if Chip Kelly really came after anybody from his previous Oregon staff that is now at Nebraska. I think he would say, "Good for you guys, and I hope you're successful, and good luck." I don't think he cared about those guys at all. So
there you go. All right,
yeah.
cool. Well, is there anything else you want to say about the coaching staff, or should we
Well,
move on to
I'm
the?
just going to say since we talked about that defensive coordinator, I guess I would say a couple of things. I know I'm not going to love the defensive coordinator's defense because his performance suggests he's not the greatest defensive coordinator in history, right? And so that's disappointing. I would have loved it to have somebody come in here with a resume that showed that they were great, and this guy doesn't have that. But I'm willing to give him a chance, and I'm willing to say that, because he's Scott's guy, and Scott believes in that chemistry of their staff. I think we need to be patient as Nebraska fans, embrace both the good and the bad. I love the fact that he's been a turnover machine maker, and hopefully he'll be more aggressive than like Diaco was, or some of these other, yeah,
Banker rather.
right. So let's see if we can get somebody who's going to use what athletic talent we have and actually get after somebody. And are they going to do the fundamentals proper? Are they going to be coached in the fundamentals? Because I feel like our guys are horrible. They're not disciplined. They're not disciplined in their tackling techniques and
Right.
how they take angles and all that stuff.
That's right.
All the details.
And I'm remembering as well in our conversation last night, you mentioned that the strength and conditioning guy who's there now
Yes.
is a former Nebraska guy, and so he's following up on that traditional Nebraska strength and conditioning philosophy.
Right.
So hopefully that will carry over and have good dividends for our players
Absolutely.
on both sides of the ball.
And he's been successful with the philosophies that made Oregon successful, and understanding the importance of being in shape and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Well, and I guess that is an interesting thing to discuss in terms of the recruits and what they're going to be conditioning for and all that. It just feels like speed has become more important because in the traditional Nebraska style was not the hurry up offense. It was very much you're going to go into the huddle, you're going to get on the ground, and you're going to smash them and keep doing that, until you win, and that could lead to long drives, where you're just getting 4 yards a carry, but you're just slowly dinking and dunking down the field. Whereas this is much more about like you're not huddling, you're getting up to the line, you're throwing the ball, and you're getting up 20 seconds later and throwing it again, and so that just requires a different personnel set on offense than what we previously have gotten.
Right, absolutely. It changes everything, and even particularly for our offensive linemen and the wide receivers. They're going to still be running routes. They're going to be different routes, and they're going to have to be in far better shape because they're going to be in constant motion. There's no longer a chance to get back to the huddle and have that 10 or 15-second respite where you're just standing in the huddle and huffing and puffing and catching your breath. Now you're going to be going and go. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Yep. So it's going to be interesting for sure. I think you've said
it's
before,
gonna be fun.
that this offense isn't an offense you love as somebody who loves the traditional Nebraska offense, but it is an exciting new thing that all the high schools are doing, and that has clearly found success at many other programs across the country.
Right.
So maybe it's time to try something a little different.
Back to the fundamentals on the ground level. if Scott Frost does the things and builds the kind of love culture, and that's what I'll call it, is the love culture, rather than the intimidation culture or a you know social club culture like we had with Mike Riley, where everybody liked each other, but love also comes in the form of tough love, right? So a love culture is going to be tough, fair, but always in the best interest of the student athlete. And you know what I mean? Or even over team, that you're gonna be worried and care about the kids. And if you do that over time and you have enough success to keep your job, then eventually that builds on itself, and people grow to understand that and appreciate that, and that's what Tom Osborne did. And I think that's the part of Tom Osborne's philosophy that isn't going to change. And I think you're going to find that Scott Frost in his offense is going to bring elements of the old Nebraska offense. I think he's going to bring the option, even though he's not going to have a traditional fullback. He's going to do it in the new age way with that spread offensive system, where he's pounding at you. But I just think he's going to find ways to understand, our climate and the conference we now play in and stuff. He's going to have to make some concessions to the system that he was using down at UCF.
Yep.
And I think he will.
Yep. Yep. I think he gets it. He certainly gets the mentality of the fan base, and what they dream of, at least.
Right.
Whether or not
Right.
that's, the reality of college football anymore. That's what they dream of, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Certainly. Okay. So moving on to the national conversation.
Yes.
The last time we talked, Tennessee was still in crisis mode, trying to find a head coach. And so in the time since then, they got the defensive coordinator at Alabama, Jeremy Pruitt, to be their head coach. So getting a premier assistant coach seems like a solid choice on their part, and good to finally get it over with, and so he can start putting together his staff and his recruits and all that.
Right. Well, and particularly, I would say that's good because the assistant coach is coming from Alabama. Now the thing is that this isn't the guy that's been with Nick Saban as the defensive coordinator forever, because he hasn't been there. You know what I mean, in that role. I think he might have been with Nick for some time. Any coach that's spent an extended amount of time with Nick Saban is going to have some great understanding of what it takes to be successful, because he will have observed it. You know what I mean? But on the downside, you're getting a guy who's never been a head coach, and that can be dangerous, as we've learned. You can be a great coordinator, but being a head coach is a very different circumstance. So we'll see.
Yep, we will see. It'll be interesting to see how that goes for them.
Now, I would mention one thing. It's amazing the number of players that we're both after. So all of a sudden, Tennessee and us are not only we won the recruiting battle for the quarterback, but they took some players that we wanted as well. And so it looks like, at least initially here, that we and Tennessee are going to run in the same circles in terms of the kinds of athletes that we're going after.
Right. Well, we talked about the Calabrasca thing with Mike Riley, given that he was coming from Oregon State, and Scott Frost, coming from Oregon, certainly has some connections out here on the Pacific Coast as well. But now, more importantly, he's got all these connections in Florida and those surrounding areas from UCF, which we're now able to draw upon. But that's a very hotly contested area, certainly.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see, whether Scott will be able to get the speed he needs to run his system to come to Nebraska, because it definitely he needs to have speed for it to work, and we don't have that kind of speed around the states that we call home, right? Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas. We don't have a lot of of that kind of speed laying around.
Right.
Whereas the Floridas and the Texases and the Tennessees and the Alabamas have a ton of that kind of speed. And so it's gonna be a challenge for Scott to figure out a way to successfully recruit to his system. But that's particularly important, for the running backs and the wide receivers only. I mean, and the quarterback. It doesn't necessarily affect his offensive line choices, and then defensive players are defensive players, and speed is valuable no matter what. But his offensive system definitely requires speed at those wide receiver positions, because you're going to be catching a lot of balls short and expected to, break a tackle and make some yardage. But I kind of like big myself, big and strong, and able to break tackles. That's what I want. I want to move the chains with my wide receivers. So I don't. Again, philosophically, one of the things I don't like about this offense is it generally appeals to the small receiver, right? The scat back type of guy who's going to make people miss. Like, if Pearson L had another year, I think he would be phenomenal in this offense. Phenomenal.
Yeah, for sure.
And I hope that Morgan, speaking of that, Morgan Stanley, God, if he's smart, he's probably going pro. But that's probably the right choice for him personally. But if he values his degree and things like that and wants to stay so he can accomplish some of those goals for his family, which I'd love to see happen, I think he could be the kind of receiver that I would like Scott to build around. Guy that's not got blazing speed, but that maybe with sure hands and a strong, ability to break a tackle here and there, would make him a stud in that offense.
Right. Well, and I just thought of this because I hadn't really considered it before, but since you brought up, in this kind of area that we're in, we don't have a lot of like talent of that specific type, that scat back type in our area. But also the Big Ten in general, it's more of a big, strong guy, kind of conference. It's not the Pac-12, which
Ground
is full.
And pound.
Right. It's not the Pac-12, which is full of all those big spread offenses. So if we can get very good at that offense, the other teams won't necessarily be used to playing against it. So we could have an advantage there for sure.
Absolutely true. And that's the thing. Now, most teams that have tried to implement the spread offense within the Big Ten have not done it very effectively, not done it very well. There was a period of time when Northwestern dabbled in it and had some success. Purdue has dabbled in it and had some success. But generally speaking, others who've tried, it hasn't been the kind of offense that was going to lead you to championships, Big Ten championships. You were going to always run into somebody who would just crush you, because if that system, if you're not able to get, a couple of first downs and kind of build that momentum and wear people out, then you see a lot of 3 and outs and it's ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but I'm just looking forward to us being good enough that when we play lesser teams, we look like a well-coached team, and we dominate some lesser teams. You know what I mean? And then over time, we get closer and closer to the big game teams.
That was something that was fun about the Taylor Martinez era, is that, against those lesser teams, he'd just break a tackle and go for, 70 yards on a run or whatever, and we'd have these big scoring games. And that was fun, but ultimately that's not that important to me, because you put up on 70 points on the Little Sisters of the Poor, okay, great, but if you can't beat, Wisconsin when the time comes, then it doesn't matter.
Right, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And the point is that, we made games where we were superior in talent by a fairly significant margin. We made them interesting and tight because we made so many self-inflicted mistakes.
Yep.
In recent years, and that's the part that drove Nebraska fans nuts.
Yes.
So we'll see.
We'll see
how that plays out.
All right. And then there were some bowls this past weekend, this past Saturday, most of which are, some of these lesser bowls, not as big. But the one that is getting talked about right now is that Boise State beat Oregon 38-28. Boise State has kind of been a thorn in Oregon's side in the past as well. So this is
Yeah,
kind of a theme almost.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. And now we're going to move on to the bowl predictions segment. I've written
Okay.
down a list here of some of the big bowls. And we're going to kind of do like what we did for the championship games. We're going to predict who we think is going to win and whether it's going to be close or blowout. Blowout meaning 14 points or more.
Okay.
Or let's say more than 14 points. So if 14 points would still be close, but if it's 15 points, it's blowout, something like that. So the first one I have on the list is not a big game, but it's a game of interest to us. The Bahamas Bowl with Ohio University versus UAB. That's
Wow.
they're not in the Idaho Potato Bowl this year.
Potato Bowl, right? Yeah.
But they.
When is that?
I just looked it up. I think it's the 22nd. Yes, the 22nd.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, so is that the day that we arrive in New Orleans?
No, that's the 23rd.
That's
This is a
23rd.
Friday.
Oh, so it's on Friday. Is it during the day or is it in the evening?
Looks like it's 9:30 my time, which means 12:30 yours.
12:30 in the afternoon.
Right. So it's in the
And that's
morning
on
game.
a Friday, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. Well, bummer. I will probably be driving.
There you go. We have
That
to
day.
listen then.
So I won't. Yeah, I'll be able to listen to it on the
There you
radio.
go.
That's true. Yeah.
Now, I have not been following the Ohio Bobcats in terms of football this year.
Oh, I have.
I know you have, but because I know they did well in the MAC.
They did.
But I'm going to I'm going to cheer for my alma mater. I'm going to say Ohio wins it close.
There you go. I'm gonna. I'm gonna say the same.
Okay. Very good. All right. So we got that. Now, this is an interesting name. It's the Camping World Bowl. Virginia Tech versus Oklahoma State. Personally, I think I'm going to go with Oklahoma State with that one. And I'm going to say blowout. I'm going to say that Oklahoma State scores a lot of points.
And where is that one played at? Is that out in California or is that Florida?
I'm not sure. Let me Google it real quick.
What's the name of the bowl game?
The Camping World Bowl.
Oh, well, it doesn't have any old moniker. Okay, I don't know what these new bowl names.
Right. Well,
it's probably Florida though, because I think Camping World is from Florida. But okay, well then I'm going to say if it's in Florida, I'm going to say Virginia Tech wins, but it'll be a close game. It'll be high scoring, but a close final score.
okay. Where is this? It says Lane Stadium. That's not helping me though.
Oh, okay. Lane Stadium is I'm pretty sure is in Florida.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying Virginia Tech close. Good to know.
Yep. I'll go Virginia Tech.
Close. Good to know. Yes, I don't know that gets into the whole like there are too many bowls nowadays because there's like all these ones with like super obscure names, and now
I know
teams that are 6-6 are able to make it into bowl games, whereas in the olden days it used to be a more exclusive kind of thing. It's not like that anymore.
No.
Then we've got this is an interesting one: Stanford versus TCU in the Alamo Bowl. Which is a bowl Nebraska has been to.
TCU and who?
Stanford.
Stanford. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
that's going to be a great matchup.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup. I'm going to go Stanford close.
I will too.
All right.
I'm going to assume that Love is going to be healthy for that game, and he is a stud.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they played USC close. Whereas TCU kind of got controlled by Oklahoma.
I agree.
So I'm going to go with that based off recent performance. But sometimes in bowl games, because there's this separation between the last game and the bowl game, things can be very different.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm going to go with Stanford.
okay. And then the Holiday Bowl, Washington State versus Michigan State. What are you thinking for that one?
Wow. Wow. And what's the bowl game again?
The Holiday Bowl.
Holiday Bowl. So that's in San Diego. Okay. Um, I do not know. Um, hmm. That one's a tough one. That one's a tough one. I'm going to go with Sparty. I'm going to go with Sparty, but close.
So you close. Okay, I'm gonna go with Washington State close. Partly because you just said that it's in San Diego, so it's on the West Coast. So
Right, right.
Washington State might have a little bit of an advantage with travel and all that.
I would agree.
Right. And okay, and so now we're getting to some of the bigger bowls here. USC versus Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl.
Wow.
This is another good matchup.
That is a great matchup. I'm going to pick USC, and yeah, I'm going to pick USC.
USC close.
Closer, big. I keep saying close. Yes, it'll end up being close. I'm not sure JT Barrett is going to have a great game.
Okay, we'll see. I'm gonna go the opposite. I'm gonna say Ohio State close.
No, I hope you're right. I mean, I want Ohio State to win that game, obviously for Big Ten reasons, but and USC is certainly an imperfect team.
Right.
They're not.
Yeah, they've
sure
had a mixed
not
schedule this
yet.
year.
Yeah.
Then Fiesta Bowl, Washington versus Penn State, another Big Ten Pac-12 matchup.
Washington versus Penn State. Huh. Boy, now Chris Peterson is one of the best coaches. Again, we've talked about how I wouldn't have minded him being our head coach at all. I'm going to go with Chris Peterson and Washington for that reason. I kind of feel like to a little bit of a degree, Penn State, the wheels came off a little bit of that program. Once people figured out that if they could focus in on the running back there at Penn State and shut him down, or at least diminish his impact on the game, that all the other players around him weren't good enough to beat you. You know, that's how teams beat Penn State late in the year once that kind of formula was presented. And so I think that will still be true. And Washington will, and their coaches are smart enough and good enough. They'll figure that out, and they'll do it too.
There we go. All right, and then the Orange Bowl, Wisconsin and Miami playing each other.
Ooh, God. In the Orange Bowl.
In the Orange
God,
Bowl.
that's disgusting. Okay? Seriously, I want Wisconsin to win that game, but it's going to be Miami. In fact, I think it might be a blowout.
Yeah.
Because it's in Miami.
Right.
Jesus, at least make them go somewhere else. Miami has sucked outside of Miami. Seriously, when they played in bowl games, like when they've been in big bowl games in past years, and they have to fly across the country and stuff, except when they were, spectacular, like national champion type teams, even in the national championship game, when they flew out the desert to the Fiesta Bowl, Penn State handed it to them in a game when they were the huge favorite, but when they play in their backyard, it's tough.
Yeah.
Nebraska knows this better than most. So I'm afraid for Wisconsin, they're going to face that as well.
Yep. I think I'm going to go with the same, go with a Miami blowout, both because I think Miami is a great team, but as well as the location giving them an advantage. And now this isn't one of the bigger bowls in terms of prominence of the teams, but it is one that we're going to be interested in for sure. Michigan versus South Carolina in the Outback Bowl.
Wow. Say that one again now.
Michigan versus South Carolina.
South Carolina.
In the Outback Bowl.
I think Michigan's going to win that game.
Okay.
That's what I think. Yep. And is it going to be a blowout? I think they're going to win comfortably. 14 points. Yes, they're going to win by more than 14 points. So we'll call it. We'll put it in the blowout category.
Okay. I'm going to predict Michigan win, but I'm going to say it's going to be close.
Okay.
I think South Carolina can hang in there with them. And then we've got the game we've already discussed, the Peach Bowl, UCF versus Auburn.
Yes, and I'm gonna regretfully I'm taking Auburn, and it's gonna be a blowout.
Auburn blowout. All right. And I'm going to go with my heart here, maybe more than my mind. I'm going to say Auburn wins, but it's going to be close. I'm going to say UCF scores enough to keep with them throughout the game, even though they eventually lose.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And then the Citrus Bowl, Notre Dame versus LSU.
Notre Dame versus LSU. Wow. I'm going to go with Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to agree. I'm going to say Notre Dame close.
Yeah, close. Yep.
Yep. Okay. We agree there. And now we're on to the big ones. The playoff games. Georgia versus Oklahoma.
Boy, I don't know if I talked about this in the last podcast, but I'm really pissed at the way they set these up. I mean, I understand it's 1 through 4, but they needed to look at it, and I don't know. I would have much rather had, somebody other than Alabama playing Clemson. I think they screwed Clemson in this deal.
I mean, I disagree. That's just how the seeding fell.
I know it is. It is
impartially.
exactly how the seeding fell. And once you open that Pandora's box about rearranging things, it creates a lot of manipulation and bad juju. So that's why I understand you just go with the way it lays out, and that's that. But having them play in the Sugar Bowl just pisses me off. So it's Clemson versus Alabama, right?
Right. Yep.
Yep. I'm going to go with my heart and say Clemson, but close.
Okay. I think I'm gonna say the same because that's also what I want. So I'm gonna go with that. And I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I'm glad that they did it this way rather than doing something where they rearrange it so Alabama and Georgia had to play each other, so we were guaranteed a SEC duo championship. But then you're guaranteeing that there's one SEC team in for sure. Whereas if you have faith that the other teams are good enough to compete, then we could get a Clemson Oklahoma championship game, and the SEC is out entirely. So it can go both ways.
I agree. You're right. I mean, I understand your point. I guess I don't agree with you, but I understand your point.
Okay. Then what do you think about Georgia and Oklahoma with Heisman Trophy winner Baker Mayfield? That also happened.
Yeah. Well, there's a Heisman. Yeah. There's a Heisman jinx that obviously does not bode well for Oklahoma. But even without that, I'm inclined to believe that it's Georgia and it's not close. I'm going to predict a blowout.
Interesting.
Georgia kicks Oklahoma's butt.
Okay. I'm going to say Georgia, but it's close. I think they're going to play. Oklahoma's going to play well, but their defense won't be enough to stop Georgia, I think. So there we go. Okay, we have a number of agreements, but there are some disagreements. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Where our predictions go.
Sounds good. I like it.
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, I think we are going to be in New Orleans for Christmas, as we mentioned. And
by the way, it's New Orleans, not New Orleans. I guess that's
you
sound like an outsider. New Orleans,
because I am. All right. New Orleans. And so we're actually going to be there in the town then for the Alabama Clemson Sugar Bowl.
Yes, the semifinal. So we're going to be there.
Right.
And hang out at the stadium. And
the game's like 9:30.
Yeah, and the game starts at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So it's the late game. So you got to start adjusting your body to the local clock as soon as you get here.
Right. We'll figure it out. I mean, that's on the...
Oh, that's true. That's right. Actually, that actually works in your favor. Never mind.
Right. I'm on the Pacific Coast already.
Yeah.
But I think we'll do a podcast maybe before some of these bowl games or like right after.
Yeah.
We'll do something together for sure while we're there.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So
I like it.
Should be fun for sure. So if you all out there enjoy listening to this podcast, you can email us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can find us online at footballthrowdown.podomatic.com. You can follow us on iTunes as well. Subscribe to us there. If you search College Football Throwdown, you'll find us. You can leave a rating or a review. Give us your feedback on what you think of the episodes, things of that nature. I was actually just reminded there was something on Podomatic. Oh, right. We got a follower. That's what it was on Podomatic. I got a notification about it. So I'm going to look that up real quick so I can call this person out and say thank you. So let me find that.
Okay. Well, and while you're doing that, I think it's going to be exciting to see spring football happen at Nebraska. And it just occurred to me that maybe I need to coordinate my timing so that I can find my way back to Lincoln for the spring game.
Conveniently end
It'll
up
be in April,
close by.
So, yeah, be somewhat close by, so we might be able to wander up to Nebraska and take in the spring game. That would be kind of fun.
There we go. Yeah, that would be fun. Yes, we have Chance Davis became a follower of our podcast on Podomatic, so thank you, Chance, for subscribing. We always appreciate that.
Outstanding. Absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're going to start doing some new things with the new year too. So maybe we need to have some conversations and make some adjustments to our podcast for the new era, the new Scott Frost era, and also the new year as the calendar turns. We need to take it to the next level, as they say.
There you go.
Sweat the details, just like Coach John Cook.
There we go. All right. So in the words of John Cook in Nebraska volleyball, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.